Okay, so here's the problem and a potential solution. You want to get data from something like Capita SIMS and put it into a Google Sheet and update it automatically, and you want to do it at whatever time interval you want to do it at. So we do this for quite a lot of things now, and automate a lot of systems. So this is how I do it. So I jump into Windows land for a minute, and I'm going to jump onto my SIMS server. So the whole thing starts with scheduled SIMS reports. That uses the command reporter function. So this is the general syntax. So it's referencing command reporter, which is an application that comes with any install of SIMS. What I've done here is remove the user and the password, but you will need a username and password in SIMS that can run whatever report you want. And then you have the name of the report in double quotes like this. Now these ones do all sorts of things. So one of them is to do with the bleep system. In fact, the first two are to do with the bleep system, where people can call for help in a lesson, and they submit a form, and this updates stuff in the back end automatically. And the other one is to do with seating plans. So we have a Google Sheet that allows people to create seating plans with lots of data on and stuff like that. And this is the report that is the main source of data for that. I export these as CSV files onto another virtual machine, which is called Win10Man for long, complicated reasons I won't bore you with. Not really very complicated, actually. It's fairly daft reasons. But anyways, they go into a network share in there. This particular virtual machine has GAM on it, so I can access GAM anywhere, the command line tool for Google Apps, and I run lots of GAM scheduled tasks on there that do all sorts of things to keep G Suite up to date. But this is just one example. There are many scheduled tasks like this. So this is just saved as a batch file, and I used regular Windows task scheduler to make these happen at whatever interval of time you want them to happen at. So that fires, in this case, 3 files to different folders on this other VM. So we jump onto the other VM, which is this Windows 10 virtual machine. So the third one of those command reporter reports ends up in GAM seating plans, and it just produces this CSV file. So what we need to do is get that into a Google Sheet. Now, there's probably lots of ways of doing this, but the way I do it is that on this particular machine, I've got a tool called InSync running. Now, I think you could probably use FileStream for this as well. I've not tried it with FileStream, but I use InSync, which is a paid for app, but it only costs about £20 a year for about 3 users, and I use it on several different accounts, and it works very, very reliably, and it will work 24/7, syncing files between Google Drive and a local machine. So it does work really well, and it's worth 20 quid a year. But I've only got it syncing a couple of folders on this virtual machine, and it's actually syncing them in this backups account, and they've got a place on this drive. So users, TV users, backups at weekly blah blah blah, and it's just syncing these. So those files go from being generated on the SIMS server onto this virtual machine, and I have a scheduled task called copyschedule.bat, and that simply copies the latest version of a particular file into one of these locations. Now, maybe I could just skip doing that altogether, but this is the way it was set up, or where I set it up, and it just works. So these are the folders that I sync to drive, and each one of those contains some CSV files with data that's updated from SIMS really as often as I want it. It could be done every 10 minutes if I wanted to. Most of them are updated like daily, or maybe in some cases weekly, because it's not really worth the effort of doing it any more often than that. Not that it really is any effort. So this one here, teacher student CSV, has been synced. That little green arrow tick there means it's synced, and with InSync you can just right click and then in sync, and you can share it with whoever's going to be doing something with that CSV file. So that CSV file is in Drive now, and every time that SIMS report runs, this CSV file gets updated in Drive as well. So we've got that link between Drive and SIMS, and once it's set up, we can just forget about it, really. So how do you get that CSV data into a Google Sheet that you can then do whatever it is that you want to do with it? So if we go back to Sheets, so I've got a sheet here called Ref Sheet 3. This is for our seating plan sheet. So this pulls in lots of data about students, class lists and all sorts of stuff. And then teachers can just select a class and then select where they want them to seat. And it'll put data in about that particular student as well. But anyways, this is a script that's associated with that CSV file called seating plans, and I use a very similar script, sometimes a bit more complicated, sometimes simpler than this. And this script basically just takes the content of the seating plan CSV file, which I've shared with my account there. So it's getting a file by name, grabbing the data from that CSV file, getting the active sheet, and then we're going to put it into a specific sheet in that spreadsheet. I don't want to just dump it into the first sheet. I want to dump it into a sheet in this particular spreadsheet called import. And then what it does is clears that import sheet, so wipes the existing data, and then it gets the data from that sheet, and so the CSV file, and puts it into that sheet. But I mean, you can basically copy this, it's not very complicated. And then what you can do is click on this little Ujima flip here, and this one runs weekly, but you can set it to run every few minutes if you want to. So this has got a trigger associated with it, and this will just run at whatever trigger that you set until you tell it not to run, really. So that data then goes into your sheet, and then you can do whatever you want with it. And one of the nice things about doing this is when you import data like this, because you're putting new stuff into the sheet, then all the sheet formulas recalculate automatically, so you don't have to go into the sheet and do anything else. But we've got quite a few things that run like this, that pull data essentially from SIMS and dump it into a Google Sheet. So you can do that all if you've got SIMS and just a virtual machine. You can sling something like InSync or FileStream on, then that's all there is to it. You don't need any really paid for software as such. Okay, so I use InSync, which is 20 quid, but I think you could do the same thing with FileStream. Hopefully that's vaguely useful and possibly intelligible. I will copy this script into the blog post, so if you want to copy it and just change the name of the CSV file, and obviously the sheet that you're importing it into, you can actually load up multiple CSV files at the same time and do this and import data into multiple tabs. You don't just have to do one, and you can choose where you put it to, so you can make this a lot more complicated if you want to. Anyways, I'll stop wittering on.